Hello there, listeners. It's Kris here again, just introducing you once more to our sponsors for this week's Football Hipsters podcast, and indeed future weeks of the pod as well. It is, of course, 4elementswebdesign.co.uk. If you have a problem, Kris and the crew have got you covered. Whether it's building a beautiful website, whether it's branding, strategic marketing, whatever you need. They even look at design, marketing, and video production, SEO, and strategy. They do everything. So remember, if you need anything sorted on your web platform or any advice in general, contact Kris and his merry bunch of men. And that website address again, 4elementswebsitedesign.co.uk, or hit them up on Twitter, as the kids say, 4elements. At 4elementsDES. Now, on with this week's show. Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and whatever it is, wherever time it is in the world for you, this is the Football Hipsters podcast. I am your host, Kris, at AFC38 on Twitter is where you can find me, and we've got a packed show as always, and hopefully, after last week's little flub, we're back to usual this week. First of all, introduce my guest to you. It is Mr. Josh Dorr, who got us out of a hole last week. Hello, Josh.
Evening, Kris. How are you?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Recovered from our listeners' question special. We enjoyed that, didn't we? I think it went well, given the circumstances we recorded in.
Yeah, definitely. I think some great questions that came in, and hopefully some more that we'll go through later in the show.
Absolutely. We did do a poll, which we'll give you the results on later on as well. And I've got another little person with me today. It's our newbie. It's Miss Cocolito. Hello, Lana.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Probably a little bit more than you, but we'll come on to that later, I'm sure. We'll dissect the...
I have no idea what you're on about.
No, of course you don't. We'll remind you later. Don't you worry. Good to have you both with me tonight. So let's crack on to the show this week. We're going to start at home in the English Premier League. And Josh, I'm going to start with you. This may not be the game everybody thinks we're going to focus on, but limited games as we have. I want to start with Ronald Koeman and Everton. May not have been the highlight game of the weekend, certainly wasn't the highlight score of the weekend, but just talk me through where you feel Ronald Koeman's head is at after yet another defeat. They drew with, who was it? Was it Nicosia, was it? The Cypriot side, wasn't it, on Thursday in the Europa League, 2-2. And then they had the Europa League effect on the Sunday, as we record, losing at home to Burnley, 1-0. So at home, no goals scored once again, and a home defeat. Do you want to give us some talk about Ronald Koeman, and indeed a few interviews he's given post-game that have surfaced on Twitter?
Yeah, it was a 1-0 loss to, home to Burnley. There's just something, when you spend a lot of money at the beginning of the window, there was always going to be this added pressure that they'll need to succeed, but it appears that, spending that kind of money doesn't always give you the results you want, and Koeman is now under a lot of pressure. There was boos at full time at Goodison Park, and he really doesn't look like he's got any idea of how to turn the side around. All the signings he brought in were fundamentally very similar. When you look at Sigurdsson, Rooney and David Klaassen, they're all kind of very clever, kind of number 10s, you'd say now. Rooney's not got pace, but neither really has Klaassen or Sigurdsson. And that team is just crying out for something like that. But yeah, in his post-match interviews, he was very much on the front foot against those that are pressuring him. I think he said to the BBC, every manager is under pressure, it's part of the job, if you don't like it, go home. So we'll have to see how that's going, but the way that he's now attacking people in the media looks like perhaps we could see the first sacking in the Premier League occurring, especially when you've got big name managers who have just left positions that might want to return to England.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come on to Harry Rad. No, sorry, not Harry Redknapp. It's a running joke. We'll come on to managers who've lost their jobs a little bit later on. But yeah, really just bizarre turn of events at Goodison. It does seem like the fans are really starting to turn on Roko, as our good pal Ross calls him. Moving probably to the games that more people expect us to focus on. Lana, here's the question for you. Pep Guardiola. Do you enjoy watching his sides or not? Now, this podcast has, I've got a lot of heat over the years for this pod, in that I don't enjoy watching Guardiola's sides. I find it lethargic in their play. I find the side-to-side passing so dull, and I just hate the way he strangles a game of football. Now, what I will say is tactically, sometimes he's very, very good. He's also very inept at times. I have to throw that one in. But yesterday he got it absolutely spot on as Man City throttled Chelsea within an inch of their lives on their own pitch and won 1-0 with a delightful De Bruyne goal. But what do you make of it? I mean, are you a Pep fan or do you just find his style just that little bit too dull despite the fact that it gets results?
No, I agree. Barring the game yesterday, I'm not really a fan of him. I never have been, and I used to get a lot of abuse on my old account for that. I just find his style of play and it's just boring. I get, the tiki-taki style of play is interesting to a lot of people, but for me, it's about, winning and crushing opponents. Not that I have witnessed much of that lately, but I agree with you. I don't find his style of play that interesting. I mean, it's a matter of taste, I suppose. But he got everything spot on yesterday. It was such a great performance by City. So hats off to them for that. Chelsea were so lucky just to concede a goal because they were just all over the place. But as I said, it's a matter of taste and what you prefer, I suppose.
Yeah, it is a hard one to judge, and obviously everyone's got an opinion. I took a fair share of heat yesterday for saying it's boring, and somebody threw a tweet at me and said, well, Arsenal's Invincibles were a possession-based side. My argument to that is, yeah, but they went somewhere with it. They blew teams away. The great Manchester United sides under Ferguson had 60-70% possession, but they blew teams away. City, I don't know, there's just something I can't get on board with. Josh, just on your thoughts on Chelsea, as I say, we give City full credit. I mean, whatever I think of what I'm watching in a Pep side, they tactically masterclassed Conte. Is this a sign that Chelsea's title, is it under threat? Is it the Manchester clubs that are going to duel to win this title? Because Chelsea, for me, I don't know what it is, but something lacking. And now they've lost Morata to this seemingly looks like a hamstring injury. I don't really see where their goals are coming from. Is that fair, or should we just give the correct praise to City instead in this occasion?
Yeah, I was watching the game with a Chelsea fan, so it was interesting to get their thoughts on it as well. When Morata came off, I think that was the big turning point because, as you say, he was really the only player that you thought would probably get a goal for them. Did think what was intriguing as well was he was replaced by Willian and not Michy Batshuayi, who'd got that 94th minute winner midweek at Atletico Madrid. So I'm not really sure about how Conte actually feels about him as a player, of whether or not Batshuayi will get back into the team, because I thought it was a very, very odd decision, especially when they need goals and they chose to play without a striker. But back on Man City, I thought they were absolutely superb. It's a style that I don't actually mind watching when Pep's actually got it nailed down. I think last season he was still trying to experiment and make sure he can get his team to do what he wants. I think he's now got that after the summer. And it was just really funny trying to listen to BT Sport, try and comprehend what he was doing, because it was all over their heads, to be honest. The things with they had Fabian Delph out at left back, and anyone that's watched a Pep Guardiola team will know that that wasn't the case, and that wouldn't be where he was playing. So I think they're probably the team to watch for this. They've shown that they can beat the bigger sides within the division. Jury's still out on Man United, because when you look at the fixtures they've had, I think they've played everybody who's in the bottom six at the moment. They haven't really been tested properly. So we'll have to see. Chelsea are level on points with Arsenal, and I think only a couple of weeks ago we were saying, or it was said in the media, that Arsenal were having a crisis. Well, they're now level on points with Chelsea, so are they really having a crisis, or is this just a kind of early season? We've got to wait for a couple more games before we can call on any team to see what they can do with the league. But I'd give it a couple more games to really, I suppose the Manchester derby is the one you're looking at for who could win this league.
And that's not till December, is it, either? So we've got quite a while. I mean, it has to be reminded we are 7 games into the season. So, it has to be said there is other games to look at. Crystal Palace and other results thrashed at Old Trafford 4-0. Yet another week goes by without even a Palace goal, although they were a little bit unlucky not to potentially get a penalty in this game. I thought there was a clumsy challenge late on, but 2 goals from Marouane Fellaini, Juan Mata and Romelu Lukaku as well on the score sheet, 4-0, and Palace continue to sink. Tottenham Hotspur got a 4-0 victory away at Huddersfield Town on Saturday. 2 more goals for Harry Kane, one for Ben Davis and one for Lana's favourite Moussa Sissoko, which apparently justifies his call up to the French national side, or not, as the case may be. But a good result for Spurs there, particularly off the back of a tough-looking European game in midweek, at least for travel purposes anyway. Leicester and Bournemouth drawing 0-0. Not a lot to say about that, in truth. Very, very sort of insipid game, if you will. And unfortunately for Ross, Stoke City beating Southampton by 2-1. I think it's fair to say that Southampton will feel slightly aggrieved by that scoreline. I don't think they deserved to be beaten in that game, but Miran Bamjuf with the opener equalised by Mayo Shida, and Peter Crouch, of all people, of course, Peter Crouch getting the winner late on. But the other 2 games I want to focus on before we finish on the Sunday games. Lana, what do you make of Project Watford? Not a question you'd have been asked many times, I doubt, but they got a 2-2 draw away at West Brom. Marco Silva seems to have something going there, doesn't he? Solomon Rondon, Johnny Evans seemingly put West Brom in a comfortable position after 20 minutes, but Doucouré, who you might remember playing in France, got one back before Richarlison, who got a question on later on actually, got the equaliser in the 90th minute, which I think, didn't he score last week against Swansea in the last minute as well? So it's 2 in 2 weeks for him. What do you make of Watford? I mean, are they good enough to maybe even push for the top 7 this season?
I've been impressed with them from the little I've seen from them, so I'm not gonna pretend I'm an expert on everything that's Watford, but they seem to be doing really well. I mean, they're 8th in the table, and seems like they're being successful with their project, unlike other teams in other leagues, even in England for that matter. And they haven't conceded many goals either. So, as Josh said, this season is still young. We're just 7 games in. I'd like to see them remain consistent over a longer period. It would be interesting to see how they do against the bigger teams, if they can remain with that level of consistency as they have so far. But I think it's too early to judge, much like it is with other teams as well. But they've done well so far. I mean, they're level with Chelsea on points. They're 12 points. So, 1 point behind Arsenal, who's 5th. So it remains to be seen how they do when they come back from international break.
There seems to be a side that are turning a few heads this season. I know a lot of pundits have looked rather silly saying they get relegated, but I think they've impressed. Overachieved, arguably, for most people's money. Teams that haven't impressed this season, though, Josh, are Swansea and West Ham. Listening to the phone-ins last night, it was quite ear-opening, if you will. If you can open your ears, I suppose you can. Slaven Bilic continues to get stick, despite the fact that West Ham did get the victory. Diafra Sakho with a last-gasp winner. I don't know whether he was off to the horses afterwards or not, bless him. But yeah, he came up with the winning goal, which sort of just about covers I suppose it covers the points West Ham needed without the performance necessarily. And then there's a few supporters that are now starting to look at Paul Clement and saying, is he just a good coach who had a brief sort of upturn in form when he came in? Are these two sides for you, two sides that are going to be struggling towards the bottom end of the season? Towards the bottom end at the end of the season?
I don't think West Ham will struggle. I don't think they'll get into a relegation battle. I think the squad they've got is ultimately too good to go down. I know we've said that before, and we've seen big teams drop out of the division, but I still think there's goals in their squad, and they just need to sort that defence out, and I think they'll be fine. Perhaps it's the man that's in charge that could be holding them back, but if it does come down to the fact that Bilic needs to leave for them to stay up, then I don't see West Ham not making that decision. Basically, they'll bring that in, and someone can get that squad and keep it in the division. But Swansea's a little bit more difficult. They've brought back Wilfred Boney, but I think they've still lost a lot of creativity within their team with Sigurdsson leaving. But it's going to be difficult for Swansea. I think they are one of those contenders for going down. But we'll have to see. I think they're slowly but surely bringing in Meza, who was probably the most creative player that they've brought in the window. It's probably the best option they've got, really. I think Renato Sanchez was good in the game, but again, he's one of those players that isn't exactly going to be. He's not going to get you goals, and he's not really going to, offer assists either. He's that kind of middle of the ground player, really, at the moment within his play style. I think he still needs to grow, but I think Swansea ultimately are the ones that look like they could be in danger, to be honest. But we'll have to see when they play Huddersfield. I think Saturday week.
That's going to be the archetypal 6-pointer, isn't it? As the saying goes. Just sticking with you, Josh, before we move on to Lana for the last game. Your two sort of clubs that you favour in the Premier League met on the Sunday. Arsenal getting what in the end was a fairly comfortable 2-0 victory. Goals from Nacho Monreal, of all people, and a delightful team goal from Big 17, as he's known in North London, Alex Iwobi. On a day that Wretch32, who I'm reliably informed is a rapper. I'm showing my age here, but I had no idea who this guy was. But apparently he dedicated his goal to him because they're big friends. Oh, isn't that nice? Anyway, back in the real world, 2-0 victory. Is this a game that Brighton in particular will look at and say, yeah, well, if we got anything from it, it was a bonus? And just quickly on Arsenal, because we try not to focus on them too much because of obviously our personal interest in them. We don't want to turn it into an Arsenal pod, but they have turned things around, haven't they, since that Liverpool game, defensively as well as winning games?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Arsenal in this game it was a case that they needed to get a goal early. Otherwise, you could see it being quite a long afternoon with frustrations growing. With a crowd that is well known not to be the most patient, shall we say, when it comes to attacking play and breaking down teams. But Brighton were almost on a hiding to nothing, to be honest. It was interesting to see how they coped with the fact that they've got Tomer Hemed, who's now suspended for 3 games for the stamp last weekend. But I think overall with Izzy Brown coming in, I think Houston was just a little bit too conservative in his approach, because after the 2 goals went in, Brighton then seemed to open up, become a bit more expansive in their play, and the introduction of Glenn Murray, who almost got what could be a consolation goal, I think, at the time, with a header that just went wide. But yeah, I think you're not going to look at Brighton's season and say, right, if they got anything in this game, it's not necessarily going to be the be or end all of their season. Whereas you could say for Arsenal, if they'd lost to Brighton, then the axes come out again, and especially this time of a international window, that we might see, like we saw with the Liverpool game, that there's then a lot of negative press that will come out for that week while there isn't any football.
Yeah, it's one of those games, one of those weeks, where we go back into an international week. So we'll have to try and find a topic if we do decide to pod next week instead of international football, because we all know international football doesn't count. final game of the weekend as far as the English Premier League goes. Lana, I want to get your thoughts. I don't know whether you saw this game because it clashed with a certain other team that you may be following, of course. But Liverpool won, Newcastle United won. Probably on as even as regards the game goes. I think it's probably a fair result. Newcastle sort of huffed and puffed, but didn't really create too much. And Liverpool didn't really fire up front today. Felipe Coutinho with the opening goal, which was a delightful strike, sort of inside of his foot into the near post. Goalkeeper caught unawares. And then the equaliser. This is what I want to ask you, really. Liverpool's defending. I mean, I know it's a bit broken recordy, and I know people are saying the same old things, but they cannot win anything, surely, defending like they do. I mean, it was just so painfully open, and the ball through the middle. Hosselu didn't even get there; he was so slow, and it went in after. I think it was Matip kicked it against him. It was that kamikaze. But I mean, what do you make of Liverpool under Klopp? And do you genuinely think they can win anything defending as they do, just outscoring teams?
No, and the fact that they have Dejan Lovren starting as a centre back should really tell you everything you want to know regarding
I knew that was coming.
I mean, I still can't believe, we ripped off. Was it Southampton who bought him from Lyon?
It was indeed, yeah.
Oh yeah, we ripped him off big times. Like, that was glorious. And then we got money when Liverpool signed him as well, because that was the add-on sell-on fee that Lyon received from Southampton. So that was a total rip-off. But like, they are so shocking to watch. They might actually be worse than Lyon, and that's saying a lot considering how bad Lyon are, because they scored 3 and concede 3. But like, Liverpool are all over the place, and it's the same familiar mistakes as I see with another certain team. And it's like, you cannot be this bad at defending. These are professional footballers. Their job is to defend, and they're doing everything else besides defending. And it just bothers me a lot.
It bothers me. It's just like, I just don't, again, I know I get some stick on this pod for saying about Klopp being a little bit of a character rather than a good manager, and it's just all the failings at Borussia Dortmund seem to be coming out at Liverpool again. And I tell you, go back to the summer where they put all their eggs in the Van Dijk basket, and they had no plan B. And speaking as an Arsenal fan who knows all too well how much criticism Arsene Wenger gets for not having other targets when he doesn't get the one he wants, I just found it amazing that a club the size of Liverpool didn't have another defender in their mindset if they couldn't get the one they wanted. But it is bizarre. Before we leave the Premier League and shoot across for some EFL chat, Lana, you just wanted to bring up one other topic that's got your goat this week.
Yes, because I've seen like I said, getting a bit of heat for not scoring, which has bothered me a lot, because we've both seen him play over the years. We know what he's capable of. And what bothers me a lot is the fact that everything goes so slow around him. I mean, yeah, he's not a quick player, but you can see at him how frustrated he is when, like, the players aren't linking up so well with him. And I partially blame Ramsey and Xhaka for that, because the amount of great runs he make, and it's like no one is there to meet him. And I think, fine, it's early and they still haven't been able to click, but this would have been the great time to have seen him with someone like Thomas Lemar or like Nabil Fekir, because he's capable of so much better. And it's just frustrating to watch him get so much stick for something he can't help.
Please don't tease me with the idea of such wonderful players in behind him. That's just mean. And I completely agree with you, by the way. It is bizarre.
He deserves greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Right now he's surrounded with, I don't know what he's surrounded with, to be honest.
He's surrounded with good players, but maybe playing in a style that doesn't necessarily play to his strengths. I think sometimes he was involved today, in the goal. The first
But
goal
you saw how
particular.
frustrated he was with Alexis, because on so many occasions it's like he's open pass, and then Alexis like, no, I'm gonna be a selfish, sorry my language, prick, and just go for goal myself when there's two players wide open. And he's not used to he's not used to having players around him being selfish, because he was leading the team, so he had players working for him, and I think that's some of, partially Wenger's fault, because you brought in this, record signing striker. You have to build a team around him and accommodate for him and make sure that he has the right players to support him, which I feel like he doesn't. And he will get the unnecessary heat that he doesn't deserve.
This was why I was so keen on Arsenal signing Jean-Michel Seri in the summer, because I just felt that his style of play and the ability to pick up the ball and run from deep and move a midfield up with him, at sort of not so much at speed in terms of fast, but in terms of transition play, winning the ball deep and pulling the midfield forward with him and playing through those lines. And he would have been so good with Lacazette. And yeah, I think the same with Fekir, although obviously Fekir playing further forward for Lyon. But I just wonder if this team will ever suit Lacazette, Ozil and Sanchez in it. Of course, this time next summer, I'm sure Alexis will be playing in Manchester, so it won't be an issue. But
it's that missing link from midfield and attack. Maybe it's because Ozil's out, but I don't know. It's that missing link, and it's just frustrating.
I think Iwobi has got the talent to possess that type of link play, but I think it's a lot to ask of a player who's not even been a regular in the side. And once again, it's the Santi Cazorla debate, isn't it? How good he can be in this team, but he's not here, so we can't cry forever. But that was the weekend that was in the Premier League. We're not going to go through the tables as much anymore because, frankly, you guys and girls that listen, you're all hipsters. You know where you can find league tables if you want them. But all you need to know is that the two Manchester clubs are out in front. Tottenham, Chelsea and Arsenal are in the top 5. And down at the bottom, Palace, Bournemouth, Swansea, Leicester and Everton are all in trouble. And West Ham and maybe Brighton. But, we'll give Brighton the benefit of the doubt for now. So that's where we are. We've got an international break, so we're not going to pick out any fixtures for next week. But what we are going to do now is pop over to the EFL. Josh, what has been happening in the EFL? Sadly, we didn't have quite as good a Sheffield derby or any other games as similar, but we did have plenty of goals in the Championship and plenty of stories that bled down into Leagues 1 and 2.
Yeah, definitely. Cheers, Kris. We'll start with, I think, the goal fest of the weekend. So Hull City putting 6 past now managerless Birmingham City. I think at time of recording, Cottrell maybe has come in now to manage Birmingham, but not a good start to see his side ship 6 goals. There's a lot of work needed doing at that club. At the top, we've now got Cardiff City, who drew 0-0 with Derby County, and Wolverhampton Wanderers just below them, who managed to put 4 past Burton Albion. One of the big stories of the weekend we've got is Preston versus Sunderland. It was a 2-2 draw, which saw Aidan McGeady, the former Preston winger, booed on his return to Deepdale and decided to return the favour to the fans after scoring the equaliser for 2-2. He then sprinted down the length of the pitch, Adebayor-like, to then celebrate in front of his old fans to really stick it to them.
Classic.
Yeah, dropping down into League 1. A couple of key results down there. Blackburn Rovers getting a 1-0 win over Gillingham. So we've got Oxford United coming back from disappointing results in the last couple of weeks to a 4-1 win away to Peterborough United. Portsmouth slipping to a 2-1 loss against Oldham Athletic. It's an odd result from the weekend. Shows how competitive these leagues are down here when big teams like Portsmouth can somehow manage to lose at Fratton Park. Shrewsbury Town still continue their incredible run of form. They won 2-0 at the weekend, and just dropping into League 2. Still grim for Grimsby. Managed to get drawn 0-0 with Lincoln City. Accrington Stanley managed to beat Forest Green Rovers. So again, more misery for the vegan club that is Forest Green Rovers. And finally, we'll finish off with Luton Town's 3-1 win against Newport County. So it's a big win for them. and helps push them up the leagues. At the moment with League Two, you've got Notts County, Exeter and Accrington at the top of the table. And rather nicely, Coventry City are also fourth. But that's everything from the EFL, Kris. Back over to you.
Splendid. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I just want to drill down into a couple of stories or a couple of teams in the EFL, soon as we've got the time to do so. What do you, just as an overall, first of all, the table as I look at it right now, you got the likes of Cardiff, Wolves, Sheffield United, Bristol City, fourth currently, Leeds, who've been early runners, Aston Villa, 4 straight wins, are back on the sort of the charts going upwards. You've also got Norwich, who've hit some form, unbeaten in 5. Is there a clear favourite from you based upon what you've seen so far? And when I say clear favourite, I mean a clear favourite that you think is going to stay at that top end, because we've seen so many different leaders so far.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think my personal team that I think I had at the top when we did our preview show with me and Ross, I had Wolves at top to get promoted. So I think they've got the best balance in the squad. They can score goals. And I think they're probably the best team in the league at the moment that doesn't have something from outside that can disrupt the team. You got the likes of Leeds, who, off the field antics will always be a problem that can hold them back getting promoted. But I think from the early leaders, yeah, I would go with Wolverhampton Wanderers. I don't think Cardiff can sustain it.
No, I think I tend to agree with you. I'd like to see Sheffield United retain this run. I'd love to see Bristol City up. It's just one of those clubs I'd love to see. I think they'd probably find it really tough in the Premier League if they ever got up, but it'd just be really cool to see a club that's, I remember from being so low down in the pyramid to being so high up would be amazing. But time will tell. Just quickly on the rest of these sides then. The only other 2 sides I wanted to focus on. Firstly, Sunderland. Are we gonna see another change of manager? Do you think here? Was there 3 defeats in the last 5, 7 points from their first 11 games, only 1 win. Is it inevitable that we're going to see a change at Sunderland again?
I think it is one of those that it could occur. We'll have to see. They've got to play Bolton at the end of October. I think that's a key game for Simon Grayson, and I think if he loses that, then yeah, he will be out of a job.
Interesting. The only other club I wanted to pick up on, and this is kind of one of those clubs that I'm just not sure how to take, and it's probably one for Joel, I suppose, but Hull City. Where did that come from yesterday? 6-1 victory over Birmingham. I know it's Birmingham, but well, I mean, it's just weird, isn't it? Because you look at that squad that Hull have got and you think, why on earth are they 17th in the Championship with only a +3 goal difference, having won 3 games all season, when they've clearly got the firepower that they displayed yesterday, and they've got players like Kamil Grosicki, who, in my humble opinion, I may be a bit biased, are too good for a Championship side. Is it just a question of Slutsky still getting used to the league, or is it? I mean, is it just the fact that the Championship is actually better than people think?
Yeah, I think he is trying to still get his head around the squad that he's got and the league itself. I know he's been studying English football. I think Joel said that perhaps he needed to study a little bit harder after some of the early results they put in, but. Yeah, I think it was a case of they were just as good as Birmingham were bad. Birmingham are absolutely awful at the moment. It's a very, very odd thing, club at the moment. But yeah, all credit to Hull, who have also managed to get Bowen, their young forward, has just signed a new contract with them as well. So that's good news for them on and off the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Good news indeed. And thank you very much for that full roundup. As we said, we got international break. Is it Leagues 1 and 2 that still carry on during the break? I think it is, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Good stuff. So we'll try and sort of dig out some games to keep an eye on. But rather than sort of going through the individual games, we'll let our listeners dig out their fixtures of clubs that they want to watch. But nevertheless, Leagues 1 and 2 are always fun to watch when the international boredom is upon us. So look out for that. As usual, if you want to talk EFL, Ross and Josh are your chaps. So find them on our on Twitter, or indeed via our website, or indeed via our Twitter account. I'm sure they'll do their best to answer those questions as best they can. So thank you for that. Right, let's have a European roundup then. Lana, seeing as we've got you, let's start in France. Let's start with some sort of quite upsetting and quite difficult scenes to watch. Tell us what happened between Amiens and Lille on Saturday night's Ligue 1 games.
Well, it was actually traumatizing to watch, because I was expecting a dull game, in all honesty, and it ended with the security barrier from the lower section of the stadium. When Lille scored, the away fans rushed down in a big puddle, basically, and the barrier collapsed, breaking forward. And I think all in all, 15 fans were injured, where 7 were seriously injured and taken to the hospital. I think the game got cancelled after that, but it was horrible to watch. A moment of joy for Lille ended up with, their fans getting injured, and then the Amiens president going out and basically, instead of saying, I hope the fans are okay and not, seriously injured, he was saying that our security barriers are all secure, basically blaming the Lille fans for it breaching, which was like very unclassy and a poor touch. When you're in a situation like this, your main focus should be on the fans and not putting blame. Obviously, he went out afterwards and apologized, said it was in the heat of the moment. He hopes the fans are safe, etc., etc. But there's talks about them getting a fine because of breach of security. And there's going to be an inspection on whether the stadium is safe enough for the fans to be in, because obviously, this reminds you of certain events that's occurred before in football history, and you work so hard on avoiding that. And it could have ended up, worse. So we're lucky that just so few were injured and it wasn't as serious as it could have been. So yeah, I hope there's the fans are the ones who got injured aren't so heavily that it wasn't so serious. And there's talks about the game being awarded to Lille, but it remains to be seen.
Yeah, it was certainly some unpleasant scenes, and as you say, I'm not sure the president chose his words particularly well in that situation. Even if he was trying to defend his own club, I think there's ways of going about it. That probably wasn't the best. And as you rightly say, we wish all the injured people well, certainly moving forwards. Nevertheless, that game obviously didn't finish. A game that did finish, however. Sorry, we have to go there. Lyon 3, Angers 3, or Angers 3, Lyon 3 to give it its correct sort of way round. What's going on with your beloved Lyon? 2 3-3 draws in a spin in Ligue 1 after 3-3 with Dijon last week at home. That was. I mean, they were cruising. Mariano Diaz put them in front. Rafael own goal equalised. Dicaby was restored to the side correctly, in my opinion, this week. Memphis Depay, seemingly 2 goals in 3 minutes, had secured the game. But then Toko Ekambi getting another goal for Angers to make it 3-2, and then Traore with the Mangani assist on 67 to make it 3-3. A game that also saw Marcelo sent off for 2 bookings in a minute, from what I remember. What do you? I mean, where do you go with Lyon? How
Where
are
do
you
you
feeling?
start?
Yeah, I mean, is it just as simple as a defence? I mean, have we got to give him a bit of a pass for the element of youth? We both agree Genesio is probably not the right man for the job. Dare I say it? We'll touch on him later on, but yeah, where are you sort of sitting on your club at the moment?
The thing is, I'm refusing to blame youth, because considering we are one of the, in my opinion, the best academy in Europe to produce great talent. And we've seen before with youth, with the likes of Umtiti, Tolisso, like I said, we have great success. But I genuinely have no idea what's wrong. Diakabi was restored into the starting position. Morel was taken off this obsession Genesio have with playing him as a center back. But I blame the coach because you have to install a certain mentality and trust into these players, and it seems like they have no confidence whatsoever in themselves and in their ability to be able to win a game. It's their third game where they give up from a winning position. They haven't won a game since August 15th in all competitions. It's either been draws or losses, and they haven't had such a poor run since 2015 when we had a certain other manager who got sacked. We all remember who that was. And then Genesio took over. And fine, he did well in his first when he took over, but it's either Aulas is hell-bent on keeping him, or Aulas is not capable of taking that decision of sacking him, because I don't see Lyon moving forward with Genesio in charge. They're in a Champions League, in a Europa League group where they should be capable of qualifying. They drew 1-1 against Atalanta, who is currently playing Juve. Atalanta is a great side, so this was a great result for Lyon. But defensively, they are so poor, and I'm refusing to blame the players because this is a side that should be capable of holding on to a 3-1 lead and not conceding again and ending the game in a 3-3 draw. Fine, goals were scored and everything, but it just bothers me so much that it's come to a point where they're so mentally fragile that they don't have the faith in themselves to go on and win. And yes, they've lost players, two huge key players, but there's still some good players in the squad, and they're great youth players coming through as well. And as I said, the only solution here is to sack Genesio. I mean, I don't know what Aulas expects. He's been having heavily discussions with the fans on Twitter where he's trying to justify it. Today, he blamed the ref for the Marcelo red card, which I get. But at that time, you were 3-1 up. You cannot blame the red card for, again, botching this result and ending the game 3-3 because the defending was so poor. So you need to get in a coach that actually knows how to set up the team both defensively, because they have no issues offensively, but it's the defense issue. And if they wish to go further in the Europa League, they really need to get their act together, and they just have to sack him. It's the only solution. They need to bring in someone else. Remy Gard is available. Bring him in again. He had a great success with Lyon, and bring in anyone. At this point, I don't mind even bringing Laurent Blanc in because he's had great success with youth. Track record speaks for himself. So it's just sack him, for the love of God, just sack him. I'm done. It's so frustrating.
Josh, get your coat, mate. We've got you a new job, so we're going to stick you on the bench at Lyon. I'm sure it will all go well. You can hear the frustration in Lana's voice there, and sorry, Lana, but we're going to have to go there again with the questions at the end of the show. So take a deep breath, and I'm going to let Josh have a little natter about PSG instead, because one of the other games we'll quickly touch on there, Josh, is indeed PSG against Bordeaux. We hoped it would be close. It really wasn't close. It was PSG 6, Bordeaux 2 on the Saturday early game. Couple of goals for Neymar, including one from the penalty spot. Yes, indeed. Which Cavani celebrated with him, strangely. Not at all awkwardly, honest. Also goals for Cavani himself, Draxler, Mbappe, and Meunier, the right back, Sankare and Malcolm with the replies for PSG. It's a simple question to you, Josh. As a man who doesn't sort of watch a huge amount of French football, I think it's fair to say, do you enjoy watching PSG sort of blow teams away like this, or is it all a little bit FIFA on amateur mode for you?
Um, I think if I was following another team in that league, I probably would find it a bit boring. But I really, really like Neymar. He's probably one of my favourite footballers at the moment, who doesn't play for a team that I support. So anytime I get to watch him at his best, it's just a joy to watch. So I do enjoy watching PSG play. They're also helping me out at the moment financially because almost a shoe-in bet is Cavani and Neymar to score and PSG to win. So long may it continue. But otherwise, I'm sure for people who do follow the league, it can get quite boring seeing that. But from someone just watching the occasional game like I do, yeah, I really enjoy seeing PSG at their best.
Yeah. I think many people would agree with that, and whether you're a fan of Project PSG or not, you can't help but sort of sit there and watch some of the football they play and think, wow. And Mbappe, I mean, anyone that doubted how good a player he is, watch the last 3 games he's been involved in. He's just a magnificent player and so mature for his tender years. Couple of other quick results from France. 1-1 draw between Guingamp and Toulouse and Dijon and Strasbourg. Last minute equaliser there for Strasbourg. They are quietly getting points. Not many points, has to be said. They are in the bottom 3, second bottom in fact, but they are getting the odd point here and there, which maybe give a boost towards the end of the season. Nantes also getting points, 3 points of them indeed at home to Metz. Another red for Benoit Asuikotu after being sent off against PSG. He's walked the plank again this weekend. Rennes losing again. I can hear Rich Allen screaming from here. Bessabiani with the own goal, which gifted Caen the 3 points at home. And Troyes, rather surprisingly, beaten St Etienne on the Sunday with a 2-1 victory. Pele and Kaloui with the goals. Azamoum was actually sent off in 33 minutes for Troyes, but they still had enough to hold off Les Verts. And in the evening game, we've got Nice hosting Marseille by the time you hear this podcast. That will have finished 7-7, possibly, or maybe not, but definitely a game to look forward to. Should say as well that Monaco and Montpellier was the game that opened the weekend with a 1-1 draw. Radamel Falcao with another goal, but equalised very late by Souleymane Camara for Montpellier. Again, just to put you in touch with the table, PSG, Monaco and Nantes, surprisingly up in third now. Cannes, Bordeaux also in the top 5, with Lyon and Marseille mid-table. Down at the bottom, Metz, Strasbourg and Lille in the drop zone with Dijon, Amiens and Rennes looking over their shoulders. On to Germany next then. Josh, we saw Carlo Ancelotti part company with Bayern Munich in midweek, or rather Bayern Munich part company with Carlo, maybe is a more accurate way of describing it. Since developed through Bayern, apparently 5 different individuals were against Ancelotti, or they are apparently the quotes of the Bayern Munich president, who's certainly known, Uli Hoeneß, for speaking out and telling exactly how he feels. Bayern Munich then finished the weekend not in a great shake. Obviously, they lost to PSG midweek. They drew 2-2 with Hertha Berlin, having been 2-0 up. Josh, are we in a situation where Bayern Munich's title is genuinely under threat this season? Because Borussia Dortmund, having won 4 on the spin now, they got a win this weekend over, where was it? It's away from home against Augsburg, with a couple goals there from Yarmolenko and Kagawa. They're 5 points clear of Bayern Munich. Do you think this is the season that Bayern will finally have that initiative wrestled away, or are they just a good coach away from turning it around again?
Yeah, I think it was a couple of seasons ago where we had a very similar conversation about Bayern Munich. I think it was at the time, just before Christmas, before the winter break. They just about snuck back to the top of the table, I think, on the last game of that weekend. So they have had it before where they kind of struggle in the early parts of the season to really get going, but they have got so much firepower, and it's a tough decision on whether or not I think Dortmund can sustain the form they've got at the moment to really deal with or hold Bayern Munich back. I think they've certainly got the attacking prowess to do so, but defensively is where I'd perhaps question their ability to maintain the run that they're on at the moment, because you know that Bayern Munich will come back this season once they get a manager in charge. I'm not sure who they're probably looking at bringing in, whether or not it would be someone like Nagelsmann from Hoffenheim, Um, I think that might be an end of the season kind of thing, and they'll just keep an interim boss for the time being.
I think Nagelsmann's definitely the one they want, but as you rightly say, whether they'll get him, particularly this season, I think remains to be seen because he's doing a very good job at Hoffenheim. A couple of the other results, Freiburg getting a very good victory over the aforementioned Hoffenheim this weekend. 3-2 victory for Freiburg. Niederlechner, who's a player I really like, with one of the goals there. Very, very good result that. Lana, Leipzig. Are you a fan of Project Leipzig from the outsider looking in? Because I know you're not really a fan of what happens with PSG and all their money. So Leipzig are a very similar model, or at least owned by an external force, if you will. They got another win this weekend over Cologne, who are really in trouble. 1 point from 7 games, they're bottom. 2-1 victory, Klosterman and Poulsen with the goals. Are you a Leipzig sort of backer, or do you sort of hate everything about what they stand for?
Oh no, I love them. How can you not? They have Evan Forsberg, obviously, but they're like everyone hates them because it's the new hipster team to hate. But I'm going against the trend because they're just such a joy to watch, and it's not like they steamroll over teams like certain Qatari-owned club does, but they're fun to watch and they have such an awesome name as well. So I'm not against them. Obviously, I hope to avoid them if they ever play Lyon in Europa League, or if I don't know if they are in Europe. No, they're in Champions League, so I have no worries there. But I enjoy watching them. I actually saw the game today. I thought it was a good game. And Emil Forsberg being amazing as always. Really wanted him at Arsenal, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
Yeah, please don't remind me please don't remind me because I would absolutely love him feeding our forward line. But yeah, I agree with you. I suppose it's one of those, if you're in Germany, maybe you feel more against it than if you're outside of Germany and looking in. But nevertheless, they've not been great at the Champions League, but they seem to be doing all right in the Bundesliga again this season thus far. And the only other team I wanted to pick up on, Josh, was with yourself, is Hanover 96, who they're still up in the top end. They're fifth currently in the Bundesliga with 12 points. They got promoted last season, and they've had a wonderful start to the season, haven't they? Do you think that their result this weekend, which was a 2-1 defeat to Borussia Mönchengladbach, John's Borussia Mönchengladbach, Ginter and Dorgan Hazard with the goals there, so actually a last-minute penalty from Gladbach to win that game. Is this the point where we see Hanover start to level out and move back down the table, or do you think that they've got the tools necessarily to at least sort of compete in the top end of the table this season?
I think ultimately they will start to level out at a point in the season, but you have to say that their run early in the season has been really, really good. They're keeping a lot of goals out as well, which is a really good thing for them, but they're not scoring as well, and I think there will come to a case when that will have to turn around. They've only scored 7 goals this season in 7 games. That's not really a sustainable amount of goals to be scoring to really maintain 5th position with 12 points. You're not always going to get that kind of return. So unless they can start scoring more, I think they will start to slip down the table.
Yeah, brilliant start to the season, though, nevertheless, for a promoted side. So that's Germany. Just quickly running through the other results. Hamburg, Werder Bremen 0-0. Wolfsburg with a 1-1 draw with Mainz. A red card, I should say, for Paul George and Tepp, formerly of Liga, in that game in the 90th minute. Eintracht Frankfurt, the mighty Eagles, with a 2-1 victory over Stuttgart. Lovely job. Sebastian Aller, one of Ross's favourites, with the winner again in the 90th minute. Lots of late action in the Bundesliga this week. Bayer Leverkusen with a 1-1 draw on Friday against Schalke. Leon Goretzka back on the score sheet there. And I think that does it, actually, for the results this weekend from Bundesliga. As we mentioned, Dortmund atop Bayern, 5 points adrift in second. We've got Hoffenheim, Leipzig, Hanover and Augsburg in the top 6, with a few notable sides in mid-table, namely Schalke, Hertha and Leverkusen. And down at the bottom, Cologne, Werder Bremen and Hamburg are occupying the 3 drop zone slots, with a clutch of teams on 7 points: Freiburg, Stuttgart, Mainz and Wolfsburg. So that is Germany. On to Italy. Back to you, Lana, for this one. We've got Atalanta against Juventus in progress at time of recording. I watched a game which I'll come on to in a minute, but the Sunday fixture is probably the game which jumps off the page is Lazio 6, Sassuolo 1. But I'm going to group three clubs together for you here. Inter winning at Benevento by 2-1, and Napoli winning against Cagliari by 3-0. Are we basically looking at sides that are going to compete in that top 4 or 5 when we're looking at Lazio and Inter and Napoli? Because we've already touched on how impressed we've been with Napoli, but particularly those other two. Are those 3 sides to keep an eye on for the coming weeks?
Yeah, especially Lazio. They were amazing today. I mean, Sassuolo went up 1-0 with the Berardi penalty, and then from then on, it was the wake-up call Lazio needed, and the goals just came pouring. Marco Parolo was amazing. I watched the game, and the goals just wouldn't stop coming. It was such a good game, and I've been really impressed with the season. They're currently 4th, 2 points behind Juve, who are playing Atalanta now. It's 0-0 as we speak. So they're not far from the top, and again, Inter second in place. So I think the battle from about the Scudetto will be Juve, Napoli, and then the battle for 3rd and 4th will probably be Inter, Lazio, Roma. Roma who also beat Milan today. They had a really good game. So we can say Juve will run off with the title, but for me, the most exciting battles will be who will finish 2nd, 3rd, how the different teams will do against the big teams like Juve, Napoli, who are the 2 teams to beat. And I think that Inzaghi is doing a really good job at Lazio, and it will be interesting if they actually remain that consistency of, scoring goals, keeping a clean sheet, and maybe, who knows, they'll get a 3rd place for the Champions League.
Yes, indeed. And a certain man, Mario Balotelli, formerly of Italy, of course, back on the score sheet tonight already for Nice against Marseille. So good.
Ever a mistake?
Good. I didn't actually see the goal. I just saw him running away, loving life, as Mario tends to do. So well done to Mario. And the other club I wanted to ask Josh about. Josh, again, I know you won't have sort of seen a huge amount of the Italian football this weekend, but the situation at Milan, losing tonight being Sunday at home to Roma by 2-0. Is this the period where we probably start to look at Vincenzo Montella losing his job? I say this particularly with Carlo Ancelotti suddenly being available. It kind of all fits, doesn't it? Milan welcoming back Ancelotti with the money and the new project, do you not think?
Yeah, it is a bit of a squeaky bum time for managers at big clubs at the moment when someone like that becomes available. I would be shocked if, I say I'd be shocked if Ancelotti went there because he's not generally a great project manager, if you know what I mean. He generally comes in at teams and doesn't really build them, just has a team that's already established and then just takes them up a level, which I think was the problem he was having at Bayern Munich, was he was trying to transition and it wasn't really working out for him. But saying that, Italian football and Italian owners don't always think with their head, so he probably will end up in charge at AC Milan. But looking at the results, it's not sustainable for them to have spent that much money and to not get the returns. I think the manager will be off very shortly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And we've also got a goal for Juventus as well. A goal from, was it Bernardeschi? I think it was.
Yes, his first start and his first goal.
There you go. See, live goals, it always sounds weird because when listeners listen back to this, they'll be like, well, yeah, we know it was 8-0, so. But, good goal for Juve. And also in Italy, the game I watched, I just wanted to give it a quick a quick nudge because I really enjoyed this game. Genoa 0, Bologna 1. Now, normally I wouldn't watch games like this. I've got to be honest. I'm a little bit of a well, actually, no, that's weird. I'm a bit of a hipster with watching random teams, but on a Saturday night, when I've got work to do, I probably shouldn't have been watching a sort of two sides that are not particularly glamorous. But I really, really enjoyed this game, and it could have been a lot more goals than it wasn't. It was end to end, bookings, tackles, fouls, passing movements, breakaways, and a goal for Rodrigo Palacio. He's still doing it at is it mid-30s now? He got a lovely goal in off the inside of the post. Mattia Peren, and if you haven't seen it, Mirante's save for Genoa. For Bologna, unbelievable save, double save in fact. One of them, a reaction save, is absolutely first class. If you haven't seen it, I would urge you to look it up. That's Mirante's save for Bologna in this game, absolutely stunning double save. But yeah, really enjoyable game, and it leaves Genoa also in a bit of a sticky situation, second bottom. A lot of pressure now on their coach Juric, who's expected to either resign or walk this week. We shall see what happens there, but too much talent in that side to be in the position they're in, particularly Matteo Perin in goal, who was again outstanding. But as for the other results, Udinese thumping Sampdoria 4-0. Didn't see that one coming, to be honest. Goal for Rodrigo de Paul in that one. Couple for Maxi Lopez as well. We mentioned Inter and Napoli. Chievo beating Fiorentina by 2-1. La Viola having a real struggle this season, 7 points and down in 12th in Serie A at the moment. They need to start winning and quickly. Spal picking up another useful point at home to Crotone. Alberto Poloski with the opener in that game for Spal. Torino and Hellas Verona playing out a 2-2 draw on the Sunday as well. A couple of goal in that one for Gianpaolo Bazzini. He's still playing, bless him. 90th minute penalty after Keane. Is that the Keane from Juve, Lana, who's on loan? I think it is, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Moise
Sadi
Keane.
just scored. Yeah.
Oh, it's 2-0.
Higuain. And Keane scored as well, I think.
It's all happening. Yeah, Moise Keane, he got the, they were 2-0 down to Torino. Iago Falque and Mbaye Niang put Torino 2 up, but Moise Keane with the 87th minute goal back, and then 90th minute equaliser from Pazzini with Zuccolini also sent off in the 90th minute. It all happened late on in that game. And that leaves us with a table. Obviously, this is recording as Juve are 2-0 up, so it looks like they're going to win. So they're probably going to go back to the top of Serie A.
Where we belong.
Where, indeed, with Napoli, with Inter and Lazio also in the top four. Roma just outside with their win tonight. 4 straight wins for Roma, quietly going back into form. Milan disappointingly down in 7th, as we mentioned. Fiorentina struggling in 12th. And then down at the very bottom, Benevento. Again, the Crystal Palace of Italy. No points from 7 games. Genoa, as we said, second bottom with Verona, Sassuolo, Crotone and Spal all struggling with 5 points or less. So that is Serie A. 1 league to go. And in Joel's absence, let's have a quick look into Spain and La Liga. I watched a very entertaining game this evening, I have to stress. I really enjoyed it genuinely, between Valencia and Athletic Club or Athletic Bilbao, whichever you prefer. Another goal for Simone Zatza. 3-2 victory there for Valencia, and they are right in form right now. Valencia really, really are. I'm going to rely on Joel's notes here, so bear with me while I have a little read through. And Joel simply quotes this. He says, the Las Palmas coach has resigned off the back of the victory by Barcelona. I don't know whether this is pre-Barcelona or after, but Barca got a 3-0 victory in a game played behind closed doors. I've got to be honest, I didn't see the reason why this was behind closed
Do
doors.
you want to
know
know
why.
the reason? Yeah.
I would
It's
love to know
pathetic.
the reason why. Go on, tell me.
Josh,
Okay.
the men first.
Thank you, Lana. It was to do with the Catalonian independence vote that occurred today, well, Sunday, which got a little bit violent, to say the least. I haven't read all the details into it at the moment, but yeah, there was a lot of clashes with police, and just a lot of violence in the city. So I think
From
the
Spanish
decision,
police.
yeah.
Okay.
Spanish
so-
police attacking Catalonian firefighters for protecting those who want to vote. I saw some of the images where I think the army basically came out. kicking and hitting old people. It was horrible to watch. And Las Palmas was the one who basically forced Barcelona into playing the game and the Spanish league as well, because apparently from the statement Barcelona released, they said that if they didn't play, they would be docked 6 points. So they decided to show up and play the game, which they shouldn't have, in my opinion, due to security and safety reasons.
Yeah, if you got all that going on, I'm not sure you'd really want to be involved in that. But nevertheless, the game went ahead, and Lionel Messi scored twice, which won't be a surprise to anyone. But maybe the third goal scorer will. One Busquets with the third goal for Barcelona, so that was probably not in the script. Or sorry, the first goal, I should say, with Messi scoring the second and third goals. But comfortable win for them. And Paco Ayestaran, the ex-Liverpool assistant and Valencia manager, is now in charge of Las Palmas. So we'll see how they go moving forwards. Joel says no other huge news, but Atletico Madrid are a worry. Drew again last night. I actually saw this game. It was not very good. 0-0 against Leganés. Not a good spectacle at all. They were obviously undone by Chelsea in the Wanda Metropolitano in midweek as well, to last-minute Batman goals. So not all rosy for Atletico, and Griezmann's hair, yeah, it's not good. There was a game that was a thriller though, 4-4 between Real Sociedad, who seem to be the team to go to for goals at the moment, with Real Betis Sunday morning. Just a nuts game. Another goal for Joaquin in this game for Betis. William Jose and Mikel Arrizabal on target for Real Sociedad, as was Diego Llorente. After Sergio Leon had seemingly won it for Betis in the 84th minute, up popped Llorente to equalise on 86, and 4-4 it ended.
It was a good morning game. I watched it at work.
I didn't see it, but I will have to look up the highlights of that. It does sound like a decent one. We also saw Villarreal winning 3-0, a decent situation for them. Bakambu, the centre forward there, with a hat-trick in this game to defeat Eibar. Real Madrid currently in action against Espanyol. They are currently 1-0 up. Apologies, I don't know who scored, but I'm sure it was somebody good.
Isco.
Oh, is it Isco? Oh, well, in that case, definitely. Then we do like Isco on this pod. Levante losing at home to Alaves by 2-0. 2-0 also was the score for Sevilla, who beat Malaga. Eva Banega, good to see him back on the score sheet, and Luis Muriel, 2 goals in 2 minutes, getting the victory in that one. And I'm missing a game here, which is the other game. Deportivo La Coruña beating Getafe 2-1 on the Saturday openers, with the winner from Andone in the 87th minute. And the final game of the weekend was on the Friday. Celta Vigo, another high-scoring game, 3-3 draw with Girona in that one. Daniel Vaz, who's a player I really, really like. Nothing to do with the fact he used to play in Liga, of course, honest, much. But he got the goal. I thought of you. Oh, 2-0 to Nice, Lana. There you go. Happy days. I thought of you.
Will be thrilled.
And it's Jean-Michel Seri, I think, who's just scored there. Lovely job. But yes, I thought of you, Lana, as one Claudio Bovu was substituted in the Leganés game last night, and I just had a little smile to myself, thinking,
why do you always associate me with trash players? What have I done to you?
Because I remember him being at Lyon and you telling me how awful he was. And
he was terrible.
I know.
He gave me nothing but misery.
I know.
And that's saying a lot, considering I've witnessed
know.
Gervinho play for Arsenal.
And that's why I thought of you, because his little face there, and oh, bless him. But yes, it was Jean-Michel Seri, by the way, heavily deflected off the back of Ulrich Rame.
Everyone's on the bench. And Atalanta just scored. Juve's own Mattia Caldara.
It's all happening. It's all happening in the games tonight. It's all happening.
We're bringing you live updates.
We are. People will be listening back to this going, yes, we know. Get on with it.
Yeah, I literally just asked that in the chat window. If Juve looked like they were going to concede.
And there it was. There you go.
You always jinx us, Josh. This is the same that happened with Leon.
That's punditry. I like it. So yes, that was the weekend that was in Spain, and thanks to Joel for pinging us his updates on that. from the weekend as well. So thank you, Joel. Very much appreciated, sir. The table very quickly again, just to give you a heads up. Barcelona currently out there in front, having won all 7 games they played, 21 points. Sevilla, Valencia out to 3rd, Atletico Madrid 4th, Betis 5th with Real Madrid in 6th. But obviously if they win tonight, they will go up to 5th. Down at the bottom, Malaga, Deportivo, Eibar, Las Palmas and Girona are all the clubs in trouble, reading from bottom up. So that is Spain, and that is this weekend in Europe. A slightly more condensed version of our roundup. Please let us know if you liked it or if you didn't like it. We can be as thorough or as vague as you wish, but we thought we'd try something a bit different this week and just try and whip through a little bit more without going too much in depth. But as always, if there is a story you want us to talk about, or if you think we've missed something, we're doing this on a Sunday evening, so we haven't even had a chance to digest all the stories yet. So if we miss anything, let us know and we'll try and cover it. Right, we've got about 10 minutes to go before we close off the show then. Josh, it's time for some questions. So between you and I, let's pick out a few. So if you join me on our Twitter feed, I'll grab one and you can grab one, and we'll go like that if we can. So we shall start by announcing that Ross fired from the podcast for giving Spurs credit, so I just want to make that public right now. He praised Harry Kane yesterday, and I don't think our relationship can continue anymore. So thanks for the memories, Ross, but it's time to say goodbye. Joking aside, Stephen Bradley asked the first question. Lana, keep this to a short answer for me. I'm sure you can. He wants to know, with the Genesio Red, was it a card to hand out? Sorry, was it card? Hang on, no, he's phrased this wrong.
Good to see I'm not the only one bad at English.
No, I'm reading it wrong. I think was it hard? Oh, was it was it card to hard or hand to card? Seriously though, this is an example of how VAR would fix errors like this. Did you see this particular incident? Is my first question.
Yeah, I did. I assume he means the Marcelo red card.
Yes. I think
when the ref gives him the yellow, he gets pissed off at the card, and he turns around with his hand in the air, so he accidentally hits him. It doesn't. Yeah, so it's not intentional, and the ref being the ref, and he needs to show off. He straight away picks up, because he turns around and it's like, "I'm sorry, it wasn't intentional." But he'd fix up the red card and be like, "Okay, piss off. Let me ruin your night even more."
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we're saying that VAR would have cleared that all up had we have had the opportunity to use it then, essentially. And that...
Yeah, I think Leon is going to appeal and have that overturned. Yeah, because if you go back and look at it,
that's a penalty. Sorry.
It's an innocent mistake. It could happen to literally anyone.
Yeah, it is. It's funny enough, actually. We're just seeing it. I'm just saying that's a penalty. Alisson player was running through on goal then. It looks like a suspicious, hefty shove. Is it? It's the right. Is it Suke? Gets shoved to the floor. Slightly overreaction. Marseille players go nuts. But to me, it's a penalty. It does make you wonder if all of these decisions will be given if VAR was in place. But yeah, good question, that Stephen. Sorry, I butchered it, by the way. I got that horribly wrong. Max Kuchaika. You, Josh, name a player you can't understand the hype around and what people see in him. In other words, name an overrated player or an overhyped player. I want you to give me one from the Championship, please.
Oh, from the Championship?
No pressure.
Really difficult. I'm going to go with overhyped John Terry.
Yeah,
he's in the Championship?
He plays for Aston Villa.
Mm-hmm.
They got rally? Oh, yeah. That shows how
As
much
part of the slowest centre-back pairing known to man. With him and Christopher Samba.
Yeah. Racist bastard.
Hard to disagree.
I hope you edit this out.
It's all right, Lana. I don't think he's listening. I've got to be honest. If you are, hello, John. How you doing? And please move your car. That's a disabled space. Yes. All right. Have you got one in the Premier League, Josh? Just out of interest, is there anything that leaps your mind?
I'm not going to say the one I put on Twitter because I'll lose a lot of friends. So I'm going to lose another group of friends, and I'm going to say Jordan Henderson.
Oh, good shout. Yes, I agree with you.
Jordan Henderson, That man could be England captain, and I will just, it's the most Brexit
Life.
footballer known to man. I hate him.
Me too.
He's just
on.
not a good player. He's so
Who would-
overhyped.
Who
And
was the one on Twitter? Come on. You can't hide.
It was Kachariak.
Okay. I did not expect that. Expect
Yes.
that. Okay, interesting.
I think it's because he's in vogue at the moment with the Arsenal fans, and
Arsenal fans hype up everyone that doesn't play for
Yeah,
Arsenal.
basically,
and,
that's
and
the
then when they
problem.
sign them, they're like, yeah, why did we sign him?
yeah,
Wenger out.
Let's
Arsenal
not
fans shouldn't be allowed to have an opinion unless they love French players.
let's not even go down the bloody Wenger talk. Jesus. Good question, Max. He also asks a follow-up question: is John Welsh dead?
Who?
Exactly. John is alive and well, Max. He just
Oh.
doesn't like us anymore. So, yeah, he's not coming on. No, John will be back. I joked pre-pod that I'd like to get John and Lana in a sandwich, but not that kind of sandwich, because that would be not good listening, or indeed viewing from my behalf. So, yes, John will be back. We'll try and get him on at some point. Before the season is over. So yes, John's working very, very long hours. He's doing 2 jobs at the moment, and of course is moonlighting as some kind of freelance bearded hipster man. I've just got visions of John in a trench coat. Let's move on really quickly. Josh, who's on next question? I think we've got 2 more, haven't we? Who's the next one? Oh, I've just found it. Can I, Josh? Do you want to ask the one from our good friend Simon Collings?
yes, I can do that one. So I'm going to throw this back to you, Kris. How many clubs are kicking themselves because they didn't get Richarlison as the Watford forward?
It's a good question. Richarlison, this Brazilian lad who's getting these goals for Watford. The trouble is with Brazilians, when you sign them, you don't really ever know what you're going to get, do you? This is the problem. You know, you sign a player, you think he's going to be, the next big thing, but Brazilians are you just never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get
Mora is a good example.
Absolutely, yeah. There's some they just come in and they're instantly adaptable, and they fit the systems well. I think if Richarlison had been signed by almost any other manager other than Marco Silva, I'm not sure he'd have been given A, the chances, and B, the opportunities to play in his favourite position as he is at Watford. So it's a difficult one for me to answer, but it's a good question, and Simon's right to highlight Richarlison as a player that I do think a lot of players will look at now, or clubs, sorry, will look at now and think, why didn't we take a gamble? But then had he been signed for Watford and been absolutely awful or not fit, then there's so many players that clubs have signed this summer that we haven't even seen yet. The best example I can give, and Simon will nod away to this one, is Kaputska at Leicester. Had an absolutely brilliant Euros, was signed by Leicester and then never played. And I think he's gone on loan this season. So sometimes you can sign a player you think is going to fit, and then it just doesn't work out. So yeah, I think fair play to Richarlison. He has done really, really well in his start with Watford, but ultimately time will tell as to whether he can sustain it. But very good little pickup. Last 2 questions come from Arian H, so I'll give one for Lana, and I guess I'm going to have to take the other one because it's sort of French-based. And Marseille have just scored a goal. There you go. This one is for you then, Lana, from Arian. What can Wenger do tactically to make Arsenal title contenders? Actually, can I ask that one to Josh, and can I ask you this one instead? Why is it Ligue 1 can produce talents a lot more than the Premier League? Because I know you'll like that question.
Because England aren't capable of producing players, and France, it's just in their DNA. I mean, they've been so good at it for so many years, and probably because due to the fact that so many of due to the history of colonization and all that, and giving players chances. And I mean, you look at the likes of Nice, Lyon, Marseille to a certain degree, Monaco, giving their young players the opportunity, starting for the first team and then going on to be great players. You don't see that in England, not in my opinion anyway. You might have seen it with Arsenal. Wenger has, he loves his young players and inserts his trust in them, but I haven't seen that with any of the other big teams. And England do have a good youth team. Didn't they go on to win the Euros or something? Like the under-21?
Yeah, the under-20s won it in the summer, I think. Yeah,
They
The
looked really
19s.
talented.
19s. Sorry.
Yeah, they looked
So 3
really
of them
good.
did.
Mm.
Yeah, I watched. I don't remember. I think it was the under-21s, maybe, perhaps. Yeah, they looked really good. But then there's where do they go from? Where do you go from now? Do you give them the chance to, progress, become better, or just throw them into a team where the coach doesn't focus on youth? Because you need someone that will show them the confidence and the trust that they can go on to do well and move on to a big club. And I don't see that in England the same way I see in Spain, Germany, but in France as well. But I think France excel at it so much more, mainly because they don't have also the money to sign big players. PSG doesn't count because they're owned by a country. So they have to rely on their youth. So it means that they'll produce more talents, which England want because they have all the money in the world, yet they sign crappy players and hype them up. Jordan Henderson, for example.
Mhm.
Kante is a great example. Speaking of overhyped players, Kante is one.
Yes, and I've said the same. I said the same. This season it is bearing fruit, isn't it? He did very well.
My agenda for so long, the amount of abuse I've gotten, the amount of people who've told me that my place is in the kitchen where I should be cooking dinner and not talking about football. Let me just say that I hope you all suffer a terminal death and just don't survive. And that I was right. Kante is stealing a living every time he puts on the France shirt. He is stealing that spot from my babies, such as Tolisso,
I knew that was coming.
Fabio, Seri. I can
Toussaint.
mention Toussaint. I mean, I can mention 10 players better than him.
Can we just clarify that you want everyone to have a terminal death but survive?
No, terminal illness that leads to them dying. Sorry, my English is or just jump off a cliff.
Let's go with
run over them with a car.
Let's
put in reverse and drive again.
Let's go with over a cliff. Just because I have this horrible feeling if somebody says we're wishing terminal illness on some people, that isn't going to go down well. So, we are of course joking for anyone who thinks or takes anything seriously.
And if you have any abuse, my Twitter handle is Cocolito, and I welcome all the abuse.
We know you can take it. It's all good. Okay, the other question that Arian's got about the Wenger do tactically to make us title contenders. Arian, do me a favour. Ask me that one again next week or when we next record, because that one's something I want to touch on, but we just haven't got the time this week. So we'll finish with 2 more. This one came from us via email from Kris H. Thank you, Kris. You always email me. I appreciate that. 6:20 a.m. emailed me this one. So wherever you are in the world, Kris, let me know, because I can't believe you're in England if you're emailing me at that time. But you never know. Maybe you were just busy watching Sandro Wagner and Bas Dost on video because you wanted to ask me who do you think is more valuable. I'm going to simply say Sandro Wagner because I think he's a hell of a talent. I've just always liked him. He's one of those sort of centre forwards that he looks a little bit ungainly. He's a little bit sort of Giroud-esque in stature. He actually reminds me of Nicholas Bentner in terms of his style more, because he's a big sort of lumbering, got that ability to get away from players as well. And I think he's made his German debut now as well. And at 29 years of age, he sort of had a late flourish playing at Hoffenheim, and I actually think he'll get a bigger move. As for Bas Dost, never really been convinced. I think he had a decent spell in Portugal, playing at Sporting. In fact, I think that's where he is now. But he was one of those players that he always flatters to deceive a little bit. You always think he's going to be better than he is. And at Wolfsburg, 36 goals and 85 appearances is not bad. But it seems to be since he's gone to Sporting where his career is revitalised.
Is this Michel Bastos?
No, this is Bas Dost, the Dutch forward.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the former Lyon player.
Oh no, he's still living. He's still playing, isn't he? Somewhere I saw his name crop up the other day. Is it in Turkey? He's in Turkey now.
Is he still alive?
He's still alive. I'll look it up.
Lyon sent him out on 7 loans.
There you go, and he's still playing.
Is he not in Brazil?
He should be actually.
Because he was in Germany for a while.
He was. He's definitely played somewhere because I saw his name the other day. Bastos, by the way, 38 goals in 38 games for Sporting. That's not bad, is it? However, I'm still going to say Sandro Wagner because I really like him. So there you go. He's in Palmeiras, Michel Bastos, by the way. So thank you, Josh. Good knowledge, that man. Born in 1983. Good year, I hear. Nothing to do with the fact I was born in 83, I promise. So, final question, Josh, and then we will wrap the show up. Tom Bates wants to ask us something, doesn't he? You can ask me if you like.
Okay. Yeah. So from Tom, do you think that English managers, especially the young and upcoming ones, are overlooked by top Premier League teams? And if so, why?
Yes and no, because I think there's a lot of hype about managers like Eddie Howe, who, whilst he plays a very attractive style of football, we haven't really seen anything come from it. I do think particularly young black or ethnic minority managers are overlooked. I think, Josh, you probably know when I say about Chris Powell, who I think is a very, very competent coach. He's been overlooked for far too long. You, of course, would know a lot about Chris Hughton being given a chance at Brighton and has more than proven that he's capable of taking the club up. Whether he's a good enough manager for the Premier League, time will tell. But, it's great that he's been given that opportunity. Was it Leroy Rossini at Torquay for a while who had a really good start to life down there, and obviously things have gone a little bit wonky since then. But I do think that's probably a bigger question in terms of sort of, foreign coaches, in terms of coloured coaches and, I think minority coaches. I think that's probably for another debate. But as for English coaches, I just think a lot of them are not good enough, to be honest with you. I think, it's the same with the players, like Lana said earlier. Certain players, certain managers don't fit. They're not adaptable. They don't want to change their philosophy or their styles. And I think particularly with English coaches, they're very set in their ways. You see it at park level that I manage in. You see it all the way at the very top level. And then you get managers like Harry Redknapp, God bless him, who just think that the way out of or the way to build a coaching career is to get the checkbook out. I'm not buying that at all. I think that's a lazy approach. And I think probably the right amount of managers are getting the chances they deserve at the clubs they deserve for the right reasons, and they are the Sean Dyches of this world, where they've created a dynasty, if you will, at the level they've coached at, and they brought their club up with them. So to answer your question, Tom, are they overlooked by top Premier League teams? Yes. Do we know the reason why? Yeah, probably because they're not good enough. Do you just want a line on that, Josh, before we finish off? Is there anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, just to add to it, I think it's the same that we've got with the young English players as well as the managers, is the reluctance to go abroad. And I think that's one of the things. Look at English managers who are in the other leagues, and it's very far and few between, to be honest. And I think if you saw someone like a Harry Redknapp or a Allardyce go out and explore other leagues, you've seen Roy Hodgson fabled for going out to other leagues, and that's helped him be kept in high esteem for bigger jobs out there. And I think that's one of the big things that's missing, that Premier League clubs are looking for managers with international experience, and English managers are so reluctant, and English players are reluctant to go abroad to broaden their horizons.
I think it's a very good question, actually, Tom. Credit to you for asking it, and it's one that's a very difficult one to answer. Really difficult one to answer, because sometimes you just don't know how good English coaches are, and I do think too little English coaches go abroad. I think we both agree on that, don't we, Josh? As far as they don't expand their opportunities to go abroad enough. And I think if we got some English coaches going even to sort of Segunda or Liga, or managers like that. Was it the guy who manages in Sweden? His name escapes me. There's a guy who manages in Sweden who's been there for years and has carved a niche.
He won a game in the Europa League. I can't think who it was.
Yes,
beat Bilbao.
Yes, I can't think. I can't think of his name.
What his name is. But yeah, I think it's a similar kind of thing that we've got the problem with. Because I did hear this week that West Ham are potentially cancelling Reece Oxford's load.
Sorry, just remembered it. Graham Potter at Ostersund's. Yes. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was saying that West Ham are potentially cancelling Reece Oxford's loan out at Mönchengladbach, which I think is a terrible thing to do, because you really need to get It doesn't matter if the loan is going well or not. You can see from certain players that actually a bad loan can be very good for their development in terms of
Progress
dealing with.
their
Yeah,
ability.
absolutely.
And their technical ability as much as anything. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So there we go. There's a fine selection of your questions. Thank you to you all for sending those in. We appreciate it. That will draw an end to this week's show then. Thank you all very, very much for tuning in. Just a couple of quick plugs. MLS is about to go into its playoffs in a matter of weeks. Just a reminder, if you didn't hear last week's show, why not? Go and listen to it now. Listeners' question special, so go back and listen to that. But we may have touched on it then. Pat and Jimmy have both agreed to sit down with me to record a podcast. So we just need to get together and work out when Josh can hit record. And of course, Josh, you're welcome to join us if you like as well. So we'll be doing that hopefully in the coming weeks. We might do it next week during the international break potentially, if we don't have another pod to do. So we'll see what we can do. We'll try and work that out. Also, our GoFundMe page. Another thank you I need to give out. So it's a good job I remember that because I nearly skipped over this. We had another very, very kind donation. Two, in fact. One was from a gentleman called Olga, or it may be a lady actually. I don't know. Augustina? That could be a lady's name, couldn't it? Augustina Akoto. Whoever you are, thank you very much. It's not a name that I recognise from our Twitter feed. So, Augustina, if you're listening, please do get in touch with our Twitter feed. Let us know who you are and if you're a new listener, because you very, very generously donated a very sizable amount of money to our GoFundMe campaign. So thank you very, very much for that. If you want to donate, you can do so. It is gofundme.com/the FH podcast. I think we're only £70 or £60 off of our target. We may sort of keep the GoFundMe page open even if we hit our target, just so we're ahead of ourselves. But again, please, if you have got some money that you want to donate, we appreciate it. But please do not give us what you can't afford. We appreciate everything, whether it's £1 or 10 or 20 or whatever. And we did have one donation this week, which wasn't to the GoFundMe page. This was just a personal donation for the work we do. I'm not going to mention the person's name because they would prefer to remain anonymous, but if you're listening, as I'm sure you are, a massive thank you from me personally. You know why, so thank you very, very much to that person as well. And as usual, you can find us on Twitter at the FH Podcast. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes and YouTube as well. You can hit us up on there, send us a question, send us an email like Kris H does every other week, and let us know what you want to talk about, and we will do our best. We're also looking for people who have never podcasted before who may like to join us for an episode or two. If you've got a headset, if you've got very, very, very good Wi-Fi or preferably Ethernet connection, and you've got the ability to talk and a little bit of knowledge about a certain subject, let us know. We may be getting in touch with you. So no promises. Oh, that's a brilliant own goal that Nice have just scored there. My goodness me. We'll leave it there for this week's podcast. Many thanks to my guests. Lana, where can people find you again if they want to give you some abuse?
At Cocolito on Twitter.
Thanking you. And Josh, where can people find you?
You can find me at bnjoshed.
Lovely. I do like your little your what's it called? Handle. That's the word. So there you go. And of course you can find me at AFC38 on Twitter if you wish to find me, and of course Joel and John and James and all the other crew. Look us up, send us a tweet. Right, that's it then for this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it as always. Enjoy your football this week wherever you can find it, and down with the internationals. We don't like them, nor do you. Let's get rid of them. Until next time, this has been the FH Podcast. We'll speak to you very soon.